Begin. We have a quorum. I will say for the record, Senator Orr is not here today. He has commitments and duties in his district. He called me last night and again this morning, and I will pass along some comments that he had about some of the contracts. Before we begin, though, I'd like to recognize our Chief Examiner, Rachel Riddle, just for a point of personal privilege, I suppose.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I just wanted to take a second and express how much I appreciate and want to thank my staff and your staff for putting together the agenda every month, but more so this month than any other month. This is a huge month. Every year is October, but I would like y'all to know that under our new processes, we make sure these contracts are submitted to you all accurately. And when I say that, these people out here can tell you how much of a pain we are. But it is not an easy process, and it is very time-consuming. And I'd like to thank Jason Polk and Laura Mess for doing that for us and doing that service for y'all.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We agree. And I would add on behalf of the committee our appreciation to those same individuals for the hard work they do and the services they provide. So let's begin now. We do have a lengthy agenda, so let's just move on through it. Be ready if you're on deck. Just be ready to come forward. First up is ADOC.
Good afternoon. ADOC has got 3 contracts on the agenda this afternoon. The first one is an amendment to the DC Winds or Direct Communications contract to add additional time and money.
Any questions on this contract? Thank you.
The next 2 contracts are both with engineering services. One is with Stantec Consulting, the other is with Wood, and these are both contracts for 2-year periods for $20 million apiece to do the flood insurance mapping in the state of Alabama.
Representative Pringle.
We don't have anybody in the state of Alabama that can map floods?
So they actually have offices in the state. Both agencies have offices in the state, one in Mobile and one in Birmingham.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Office of Administrative of the Courts, and I think we have about 21 pages of contracts.
These are 43 contracts of our CRO contracts, which are mandatory that are mandated by the Mandatory Treatment Act of 1990.
Can we do these in bulk?
Sure.
They're all court referrals annual every year. It's the same thing.
Yes, sir.
Right,
Any objection to that? Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Page 24, Alabama Law Enforcement Agency.
ALEA only has 1 contract to present this month, and it's a renewal for Homeland Security Services.
Questions? Thank you. Department of Commerce.
Good afternoon. We have 2 contracts on the agenda today. One is with Community Attributes. They're going to provide research and data to the Office of Apprenticeship Programs, and that contract is for $115,000, and it's 100% federally funded.
Any questions?
The second contract is with Smart Solutions. They're going to support our database and software budget control. That contract is for $219,780. That is going to be 100% federally funded as well.
Questions? Thank you. Department of Conservation.
Good afternoon. We have 4 contracts before you today. The first one is for architectural services, and it's an amendment.
Questions? Okay.
Okay, and the other 3 are for surveying services.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Department of Corrections.
Hi, good afternoon. The Department of Corrections has 4 contracts for your approval today. The first is Wexford Health Services. This is a 6-month renewal and amendment for an additional $117 million and change. Wexford provides comprehensive health care, including medical and mental health for all of the state's inmate population.
Any questions? Okay.
All right, the next is BBH CBMC, or Citizens Baptist. This is a one-year renewal and amendment for an additional $7.1 million. Citizens Baptist provides inpatient mental health services in a secure hospital setting for inmates whose mental health needs exceed the services of ADOC in the facilities.
Any questions? Okay.
The third is the Moss Group. This is a one-year contract renewal for a contract adding an additional $755,529 to the contract. The Moss Group assists DOC with their ongoing compliance efforts with PREA and the settlement agreement by providing strategic support, consulting services on sexual safety, operational practice, training, and PREA compliance.
Questions? Okay.
Lastly, we have a new contract for Kathleen Dennehy for her work as a monitor in the DOJ Tutwiler settlement. As part of the DOJ settlement agreement relating to Tutwiler, Ms. Dennehy was appointed by the courts to monitor Tutwiler to ensure the terms of the settlement are being followed. This is a 2-year, not to exceed $200,000 at $200 per hour contract.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Department of Education.
Good afternoon. So up for review, we have quite a few contracts today. We can go through them one by one if y'all want to, but from page 29 to 35, all of these contracts are basically professional services that are mandated by IDEA to make sure that we are providing services. For instance, if a parent has an issue with a district, then depending on the severity, we assign these people cases based on a rotation.
Right. Representative Klaus? We do those in mass. Yes, we do those in mass. Yes, sure. Any objection to those in mass? Any questions? Thank you.
Okay. And then the next contract is with Teaching Strategies. This is basically just to capture, analyze, and disaggregate preschool education. This is like a federally mandated data that we have to turn in.
Any questions on that contract? You skipped one, I believe, on page 35.
Oh, did I?
The NIMSY contract.
Sorry, give me 1 second.
Second contract on page 35.
Oh, right, sorry. So our contract with NIMSY, this is a new contract. It's to provide a surveying service for charter schools.
No, that's not the one I'm talking about. This is the remote hub.
Yep, sorry. I was looking at the wrong one. This is an amendment to our contract with NIMSY to implement a scale and remote learning hub for STEM education.
This is the beginning of the second year of a pilot program.
Sorry about that.
Any questions? Okay.
And then our next contract is with Teaching Strategies. This is the federally mandated data that we have to turn in. They're going to be evaluating that data for us and putting it together so that we can turn it in.
Any questions? Okay.
Our next contract is with Cognia. This is a new contract. This is the one where they're going to be surveying charter schools and doing site visits.
Can I,
Yeah, Representative Pringle.
tell me a little bit more about this contract?
So this contract, they're basically just going to be going and surveying, doing pre-site and post-site visits, putting that information together so that we can turn it in and sort of get an understanding on what's working, what's not.
So they're going to go before the commission allows a charter school to be chartered? Or are they going to go afterwards?
No, sorry, this is just post-site visits, yes. This is,
So in other words, the disaster y'all had in Washington County would not be prevented by this group, and the disaster you have in Houston County would not be prevented by this.
I can get you more information on that. I can come and talk to you afterward if you'd like me to.
I know you'll have a lot of problems where y'all are putting these charter schools. I mean, everybody in Washington County, you told you they didn't want that school, and y'all put it in there. It's about half built now, and it's never going to open. And I know y'all got a disaster down in Houston County, but I mean, we're spending a lot of money for somebody to analyze stuff, but after y'all have made a bad decision, what good does it do to analyze it? It seems like you need to analyze this stuff on the front end.
Yes, sir.
I'm just, anyway.
Do you want to hold this contract, or do you want?
No, I mean,
information?
just they're making terrible decisions over there, and it's costing the taxpayers money. I mean, these are awful decisions, but apparently y'all aren't willing to address your decisions before you make them. So,
Okay, continue.
Okay. So the next contract we have is with Academic Development Institute. This is a renewal to the contract. It's going to provide high-quality professional development for the department for target school districts for turnaround schools.
Any questions? Thank you.
And then the last contract that we have is with Kelly Services. This is just to provide services in schools for substitute teachers or staffing. They're a staffing agency so that we can.
This is a contract Senator Orr had some concerns about. I think he would like to hold it, but the description is provide services by assigning temporary staff to qualified non-public schools in Alabama. I think we need to have a little more information about what the point of this. Jessica, would you like to comment?
You normally would not see a non-public school contract in front of us, but this is related to the federal COVID funds that came into our state. We manage the emergency assistance to non-public schools money that was in the GEAR fund. The State Department of Education manages that. One of the biggest requests that is an allowable expense in that money is to hire staff. And so we have, during the emergency, we were providing some of that on purchase orders via individual schools. But as we were closing out, we'd like to obligate up to $4 million of that money to continue to provide. And this is, Kelly Services can do bus drivers, substitutes, and everyone. The only reason our public schools use them all the time, they hire them. The only reason we're doing this is because we are the manager of the non-public school fund, and we cannot send the money directly to a non-public school.
And that you're the manager because?
We were the designated grant manager. This money is in the governor's emergency relief fund, and we manage the EANS grant program that was inside that fund.
So you were tapped with responsibility by the governor or by the feds?
By the governor, but that is very standard. Most state education agencies were managing the governor's emergency education money.
Okay. So Senator Orr had some concerns. I would like to just hold this. Let's have a conversation with him. Anybody else have any objections or questions? Otherwise, let's hold pending a conversation with Senator Orr.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
And then our last contract is with CLASS. This is to provide professional development for principals, assistant principals, administrative figures.
Any questions? Thank you. Environmental management.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members. This contract relates to part of the department's anti-litter campaign. It's a partnership we have with ADOC, and it's supported with a competitive EPA grant, and it's a simple request for a time extension, no money.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Department of Finance.
Good afternoon. This first contract with CMH Architects is architect and design services for the Capitol elevators.
Questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. The next 9 contracts you have from the Finance Department are all from the Division of Risk Management. All are renewals of existing contracts. The first is Spring Creek Investments, which is a renewal of the contract for our overall investment manager, who manages the investments, investment manager advisors themselves. Is a renewal of her contract for a final 2 years of the existing 6-year possible.
Representative Klaus. Okay.
Yep, the remainers are just our adjusters for the state insurance fund.
Any objection? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That would take us to page 45, Forensic Sciences.
Afternoon, respected members of the committee. Mark Bass, Department of Forensic Sciences. We've got two contracts before you today. The first one is with Birchfield Penuel for the professional design services for our Dothan Laboratory.
Questions? Okay.
And our second contract is with the Healthcare Authority of the City of Huntsville Hospital Pathology Department for histology services for our death investigation.
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you, members.
Historical Commission.
Good afternoon. We have two contracts before you today. The first is Terracon Consultants. It is an extension for time and money.
Questions?
The second is a new contract for Thompson Engineering for architectural and engineering services at Middle Bay Lighthouse.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Human Resources.
Good afternoon. We have two contracts. The first is a renewal with Conduent State and Local Solutions. It is for EBT transfer of food assistance benefits, and it is through September of '23.
So this is a question Senator Orr would like for me to ask was philosophically, or I guess this program and the next contract as well. Why don't you cover that, and I'll ask the question that covers both of these.
Yes, sir. The second contract is also a renewal with Public Consulting Group LLC, and it again is through September 30th of 2023. And both, the second one, Public Consulting Group, is 100% federal funds, and the first one with Conduent is 50% state funds, 50% federal funds.
So I guess the question relates to the description that this is to increase recipient participation in program outcomes. So it would appear that both these contracts are spending to increase participation, which I understand the argument for that, but partially. But the other thing is, this is maybe, is this, help us understand how this is not steering people to assistance and not putting people, what are we doing spending money to get people in the other direction? So
no, sir, it's more in line with customer service. It's not necessarily going out and soliciting people for these benefits, but when people call in and have questions about their benefits, it is to provide assistance in that case for the Public Consulting Group. Conduent is the company that actually places the electronic benefit on the card. They produce those benefit cards and put the money on that. That's Conduent. Public Consulting Group is assisting with the customer service.
So the description is to increase participation is maybe not the best way to say what this is about?
Well, when someone is making an application and they are attempting to complete that application, if they don't have assistance, they may just quit and not follow through.
But you're responding to request as opposed to soliciting participants. Is that fair?
Yes, sir. I'm not aware of there being a lot of solicitation out there.
Any other questions?
You know,
Representative Pringle.
I know for a fact there are a lot of private organizations that do this. I mean, I work with too many people that are on food assistance. By the way, they're also working full-time and on full disability and welfare and everything else. But, I mean, there are private organizations that assist people in filling all these forms out. I mean, if the private groups are doing it, why are we paying? Does that make sense?
Well, sir, if it's an application with the Department of Human Resources, then we want to provide assistance for the people who are applying for our services.
Yeah. And have y'all got anybody working on EBT fraud?
Yes, sir.
Because I see it all the time.
Yes, sir, we do.
I mean, I see EBT fraud constantly. I mean, I go in the bakery and they're buying birthday cakes on EBT cards. I go in the fresh market, they're buying $80 worth of shrimp to go to a party on EBT, and then they pay them $1 to cook it. So they're buying cooked food on EBT cards. There's a whole pizza chain, I'm not going to call the name, but the entire business model is selling pizzas on EBT cards. I mean, I just watch EBT get abused. Yeah, they've got thousands of dollars on EBT cards, and they're working full-time.
Mr. Landers?
Hey, good afternoon. Stan Landers, Chief of Staff at DHR. To address that, yes, we do. We have a Public Accountability Unit, Program Integrity Office that we have 4 current special investigators that work strictly food assistance fraud. That's not a lot. It's not a lot of investigators considering the number of cases that are out there. We work closely with the Office of Inspector General too to handle these cases. So if you know of anything like that specifically, let us know. We'll work on it.
Give me a number.
I'll give it to you. You got mine.
Yeah, no, I watch people go in the convenience stores and buy potato chips and candy on EBT cards all the time. Just flies in my face.
I understand that. I also want to clear up one of the other things too in regard to participation. On the second contract, we're talking about employment and training there. So those individuals that are on SNAP, what we're trying to do is get these people in a more self-sufficient position so that they won't be on food assistance, TANF, or anything like that. So that's the participation we're trying to increase there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Department of Insurance?
Ren Norman with the Department of Insurance. Good afternoon. We've got 12 contracts for you today. All of them are 2-year contracts in response to RFPs, and they're all replacing current contracts with the same people who will expire at the end of this month. 11 of them are for CPAs, actuaries, examiners, we call them, who audit insurance company records mostly. And then the odd one is a veterinarian contract for our fire marshal who has an accelerant sniffing dog that they have to take care of in Anniston, Alabama. Be happy to go through them if you'd like me to.
Do you know what's the collective amount of these in total? They're on the front.
So just under $3 million.
So the question, I guess, when you look at the description of these contracts, this department has employees on staff who are used primarily for these services. These contracts will be used only in situations where staff is unable or unavailable. But that's $3 million. I mean, do we need to hire more people, or is it worth? I mean, what's the trade-off of having that in-house versus going out? This is pretty expensive.
Well, we always want to use our internal examiners when we can. We've hit a time when several of our senior examiners have reached their 25 years and have retired, and we've lost some of those senior examiners, and so we have to make sure that these examiners are in place so that we can make sure the companies are meeting their requirements.
Yeah. Is this the level that you normally have for these contracts?
It is. The $700,000 one is a little above normal, and that's primarily because we've lost some of our senior examiners.
So long term, you think you'll replace those examiners, or was the plan to rely on outside or more inside, or what?
No, the plan is to hire as many as we can. If you know anyone with accounting background who's looking for a state job, give us a call.
Yeah. Any other questions? Thank you. Department of Labor.
Good afternoon. Joey Ammons with Department of Labor. This is a contract. We've done this over the past couple of years. We have an entity that helps us take incoming calls with regards to unemployment claims. And this is extending that contract out till September of 23. There's no additional money. It's just extending the time.
Questions? Thank you.
Right.
Majority Leader of the House.
Good afternoon. I just have one contract between the Majority Leader and David Asbell, who does communications work with the caucus.
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Medicaid.
Good afternoon. The Alabama Medicaid Agency has 12 contracts before you today. Two are new contracts, and the remaining 10 contracts are renewals of previously approved contracts. And of those 10 renewals, 7 are kind of grouped together as renewals related to the ACHN program. The first 2 contracts are for use of pharmacists to handle the legislatively mandated preferred drug program.
Any questions? Okay.
The next contract, and now we're going into the 10 renewals. The next contract is Alabama Select Network, which is in its 3rd and final renewal. This is related to the ICN program.
Questions? Thank you.
The next contract with Health Tech Solutions LLC. This is another renewal, and this vendor will provide data integration related to structured lab results for the agency.
Questions? Okay.
The next contract, Keystone Peer Review Organization, or KeyPro, is another renewal. This is for quality and review services related to the ICF and IID facilities.
Questions? Okay.
And the next 7 contracts, you may have noticed the description for the next 7 are all the same. These are the second renewal of the contracts for the 7 ACHNs, or Alabama Coordinated Health Networks, across the state.
Representative Klaus, you have any objection to moving these in mass? Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mental Health Department.
Okay, we have 11 contracts today. First one is a Dannon project. This is an amendment. This contractor does a design and implement a program evaluation plan for the post-incarceration case management, provide technical assistance and training for new projects, and also assist the department with the crisis care initiative.
Any questions? Okay.
The next one is Health Management Associates Incorporated. It's an amendment. Contractor will design tools and gather data to facilitate reports to CMS, the department, Alabama Medicaid, regarding the community waiver program.
Any questions? Okay.
Next is Columbus Medical. It's an amendment. Contractor will provide training and technical assistance to the department regarding the community waiver program and help ensure the program is in compliance with CMS.
Questions? Okay.
The next is Quilts. It's an amendment. The contractor will develop and implement training and provide technical assistance on the community waiver program. This is designed for our third-party providers and direct support staff.
Questions? Okay.
Next is Moonlight. As an amendment, provide pre-employment and post-employment background checks for the 3 facilities in Tuscaloosa.
Questions?
Next is Therap. It's an amendment. Contract is for the Adidas software program, which will be used by the department for the management of the statewide wait list, waiver programs, and AMA billing needs for the developmental disabilities.
Questions? Okay.
Next is ANOVA. It's an amendment. The vendor will assist in redesign of the case management system so it will be in compliance with CMS and the home and community-based settings rule.
Okay. Questions?
Next is Chaco Springs. It's a new contract. RFP was posted to the database. We had 123 direct solicitations. We had 1 response. Contractor will provide facilities, equipment, room, and board for 900 attendees with mental illness at a 3-day, 2-night training and educational meeting. The training will provide skills and support needed to live more independently and become less dependent on state programs.
Any questions? Okay.
Next is health screening. It's a new contract. Online module, what the vendor does is provide online modules for these subjects of the Fatal 5 Fundamentals and Fatal 5 Advanced. The modules are for our third-party providers.
Questions? Okay.
Next is Allied Community Resources. This is a renewal. Allied Community Resources is the department's fiscal agent who coordinates the billing and payment services for families and individuals who are self-directing services. The funds that are associated with the contract are used in 2 ways. The majority of the dollars go to providers of self-directed services for approximately currently 514 individuals on the ID and living at home waivers. The major benefit of this program to individuals served is the ability to stay in their own homes as opposed to group homes. Benefit to the state is a cost savings of $11 million per year as compared to using group homes.
Questions? Okay.
The last one is Southeast Reimbursement Group. It's a new contract, RFP posted, 142 direct solicitations. There was one response. Contractor is to provide Medicare and Medicaid cost reports for the 3 facilities in Tuscaloosa. The reports are required by CMS and necessary to continue receiving federal funds.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Pardons and Paroles Board.
Good afternoon, Eric Anderson with Pardons and Parole. We have one contract with GMC for architectural services for our prep center in Perry County. It's a 2-year contract for $500,000, up to $500,000.
Any questions? Thank you. Peace Officers Annuity and Benefit Fund.
Good afternoon. We have 2 contracts. The first is with Kavanaugh McDonald for an actuarial contract. And the second one is Regions Bank for an investment management consultant and custodian contract.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Public Health Department.
Good afternoon, Valerie Russell for the department. We have a few contracts in front of you today. The first one is CBIZ. It's actually an amended contract for an extension of the contract dates for 2 years. It's 15% state funded, 85% federally funded. And the contract is to provide consultants and assistance for actuarial evaluation, projections for child health insurance program.
Any questions? Okay.
The second contract we have is with a Mr. or Dr. Calderon, and this is to do with the direct hands-on healthcare of patients diagnosed with TB, latent TB infections, and suspected of active TB. And it's an amended contract. Essentially, his contract ran over, and I guess 2 years ago it was hard to predict the amount. So it's for an additional $20,000.
Any questions? Okay.
The third contract is with Alabama Center for Occupational Medicine and Prevention. This is for a contract, a $25,000 max, and it's to fit medical care personnel with respirator equipment, and you have to have a doctor to approve and designate which type of respirator is the most effective for the employee.
Questions?
I'm sorry, it's a 1-year contract.
Yep.
It's extended.
Okay.
Okay. The next contract is, well, the next 2 contracts are actually contracts with doctors that also are to do with the direct hands-on care of patients diagnosed with TB or latent TB infection. They're both 2-year contracts. They're both 100% state funded, and they're both $40,000 max with a $150 per hour charge.
Any questions? Thank you. Rehabilitation Services.
Good afternoon. I'm Shay Cannon with ADRS. We have 2 contracts that we're presenting, one of which is with Dr. Summerlin. He provides psychological consultations in the Anniston area. He's actually retiring, so we are just asking to modify it, time and amount down.
Any questions? Okay.
The second contract is for our generator replacement. We are requesting design services for that.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Department of Revenue.
Good
Good afternoon. I'm Mary Martin Mitchell for the Department of Revenue, and we have 2 contracts before the committee today. The first is with Garrett Consulting Group. This is just an amendment to add additional money onto this contract for $250,000 additional dollars. They are aiding the department with mail service system, imaging of checks to allow for faster processing.
And just to clarify, this is not a former employee and it's not me.
It has nothing to do with either Joe Garrett or Danny Garrett
thank
in
you.
any pay.
Any questions?
Our second contract up is for Informatics, Inc. It is also an amendment to add an additional $131,648 on a current contract, and they help with the financial data information match that we use for collection activity at the department.
Any questions? Thank you. Supreme Court.
Good afternoon. I'm Eileen Harris, and I'm speaking on behalf of Megan Rodachek, the clerk of the Alabama Supreme Court. We have 3 contracts before you today. The first contract is with the Alabama Center for Dispute Resolution for $125,000 for 1 year. The center maintains the Alabama State Court roster of registered mediators throughout the state and encourages the use of pro bono mediation.
That's also the second contract, right? Is
And we
also
have, yes, sir, we have 2 contracts that relate to a statutory provision for the, one is with the Alabama Center for Dispute Resolution, the other is with the Alabama Law Foundation. These are statutory provisions for the provision of pro bono legal services with the Alabama Center for Dispute Resolution. It encourages, and we have a Parents Are Forever family mediation program, which has been very successful since 2013. And then with the Alabama Law Foundation, that contract pertains to the Access to Justice provision through the Access to Justice Commission, and those funds are used to promote and provide assistance to low-income individuals with legal services and other services.
Senator Orr asked that we wonder if you can give us any more information on who owns the Alabama Center for Dispute Resolution.
Sure. I'm the executive director for the Alabama Center for Dispute Resolution. The Alabama Supreme Court Commission on Dispute Resolution was formed in 1994 by order of the Alabama Supreme Court. And then the commission established the center as a 501c3 in 1994 to do the day-to-day work and administration for the commission. The center actually administers ADR throughout the state of Alabama, and we coordinate with businesses, schools, universities. We coordinate with the Alabama State Bar. We provide education and training on ADR options that are available, and we also provide assistance to the public.
And this was created what year?
In 1994.
Okay. Any questions? Thank you. Transportation Department.
We have 6 contracts today. All of them are new. All federal 80%, 20% state match, except for the drug testing one, which is a 70-30 split. The first one is for geotechnical services through Thompson Engineering.
Any questions? Okay.
All right. The next 2 are for independent cost estimating services. This is for the West Alabama Highway. They will provide those services to us as we negotiate and process the payments and all too.
Any questions? Okay.
Third one is, as I mentioned, the drug and alcohol testing services. This is required by US DOT. This is mostly for local transit operators that that money comes through us.
Questions? Okay.
The next one is another independent cost estimator, as we discussed earlier, our mini consulting services for the West Alabama Highway.
Questions? Okay.
The final one is for traffic operations program services for our top program, a federal aid program with AECOM.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Underground and above ground board.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, good afternoon. I'm Philip Kinney. I'm a contract lobbyist, which is obviously not usually what you have on this podium at this time, but if you'll indulge me. The above ground underground storage tank trust fund is housed in ADEM, but it is the body of it is a group of folks who are volunteer for the board. This contract is being presented for, I think we started in 2014, and Alabama Tools, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of the Petroleum and Convenient Marketers Association, provides continuing education for tank owners around the state to keep them abreast of all of the regulations and rules surrounding the ownership of above ground and underground storage tanks, and thereby helping to keep those spills to a minimum. It is a 2-year contract with a total of $190,000. Mr. Fletcher is here, and he could answer any questions in more detail than I, if y'all have them.
Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee.
Department of Veterans Affairs.
Good afternoon. Hey, Beverly Gephardt with Veteran Affairs. You have one contract before you today on behalf of the department. This is an amendment to an existing contract. We have an architect who is designing the new state veterans home and enterprise. This is an extension in funding for that contract.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Department of Youth Services.
Good afternoon. We have one contract before you today with Bate Geosciences Corporation. This is at our VACA campus in Birmingham to explore subsurface conditions underneath one of our buildings.
Any questions? Thank you. So that concludes that portion of our agenda. Now we move to legal services contracts, Attorney General's office.
Good afternoon. We have two contracts that are up. One is for Byron Snellgrove. He's actually performing or providing training at the Law Enforcement Summit this in October. And then the other one is for Matthew DeLisi, who's an expert in ongoing litigation that we have dealing with sex offender laws.
With what did you say?
Sex offender laws.
Any questions? They're both very expensive, but that's, thank you. Any bond commission?
Afternoon. This is a contract for Bond and Disclosure Counsel for general obligation bonds of the Commission.
Any questions? Thank you. Department of Corrections.
Hi, today we have 9 legal services contracts for the committee to consider. The first is a new contract for Alina Arbuthnot of Maynard Cooper. She's going to advise the department in Title 39 and Public Works as it relates to our new prison construction. This is a 2-year, not to exceed $200,000 contract.
Any questions? Okay.
The second is a new contract for Alan Sheehan of Capel and Howard for the representation of multiple DOC defendants in the lawsuit styled Beatty versus Dunn. This DAG was requested because of a conflict of interest with the department. This is a 2-year, not to exceed $200,000 contract covered by risk management.
Any questions? Okay.
The third is a new contract for, again, Mr. Sheehan of Capel Howard for the representation of multiple DOC defendants in the lawsuit styled Huffman versus Dunn. Again, this DAG was requested due to a conflict of interest. This is a 2-year, not to exceed $200,000 contract, again, covered by risk management.
Questions? Okay.
Fourth, we have a new contract for Chris Williams of Maynard Cooper. This is for the case styled Bosarge versus the U.S. Department of Treasury in the Middle District. This is a 2-year, not to exceed $200,000 contract. This we expect to be some very heavy workload associated with this case, thus the request for outside counsel.
Questions? Okay.
The fifth is a new contract for Dr. Donald Reeves of Hydrangea Hill Psychiatric Associates. And this is for his participation in the external monitoring team in the Braggs litigation. Pursuant to a Braggs court order, the ADOC was ordered to enter into a contractual agreement with Mr. Reeves. This is a not to exceed $280,000 contract, and it's a 2-year contract. Dr. Reeves is a forensic psychologist.
Questions? Okay.
We also have a new contract for Dr. Elizabeth Falcon of Falcon Correctional and Community Services. This is it's very similar to Mr. Reeves. We were ordered to enter into a contract with Dr. Falcon for her to be in the external monitoring team, according with the Braggs litigation. Again, this is a not to exceed $280,000 2-year contract. She's a correctional and forensic psychologist.
Questions? Okay.
We have a new contract for Terry Tompkins of Rose and Harwood. This is for the case styled Rutledge versus Sansing et al. In the Northern District. This, she will represent one of our employees, and this is a 2-year, not to exceed $200,000 contract covered by risk management.
Any questions? Okay.
We have a renewal and amendment for William Lunsford of Maynard Cooper in the case styled USA versus the state of Alabama in the Middle District, Southern Division. This is a 2-year renewal with an additional $200,000, bringing the contract total to $250,000.
Any questions? Okay.
The last contract is a new contract for Mr. Lunsford for the case style Beatty versus Dunn. Mr. Lunsford will represent 3 DOC employees in this suit. This is a 2-year, not to exceed $200,000 contract.
Questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Department of Education.
We have one contract. This is with Adams and Reese LLP. This is an as-needed contract. We only use their services as needed as pertaining to federal programs and dealings with the Federal Department of Education.
Questions? Thank you. Department of Finance.
We have 3 contracts here, all for risk management. All are renewals of existing contracts with the attorneys who provide services for Alabama's educators who are covered under the Educators Liability Trust Fund.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Human Resources.
We have 4 legal services contracts. They are all renewals for 2 years and amendments to increase the dollar amount. The first one is Bedford, Rogers, Bowling, and McReynolds.
Questions? Okay.
The second is David M. White.
Questions? Okay.
The third is Jennifer L. Wilson.
Questions? Okay.
And the fourth is McCool and Owens.
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Judicial Inquiry Commission.
Good afternoon. I'm John Selden with the Judicial Inquiry Commission. We have one contract for Ms. Jean Webb. This is for non-litigation legal services for investigations and for preparations of prosecutions before the Court of the Judiciary.
Any questions? Thank you. Nursing Board.
Afterwards.
Alice Henley for the Alabama Board of Nursing. We have one contract today. It's for Dorman Walker of Balch and Bingham for representation of the ABN employees who are being called to testify in an underlying civil suit that involves the decisions of the legal division.
Any questions? Thank you. Pharmacy Board.
Good afternoon. The Pharmacy Board has 2 contracts. The first is for our hearing officer, and it's just a renewal. The second is for one of our counsel. It's also a renewal, but we did make an amendment to allow for administrative assistance.
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Public Health.
Yes, we have one contract for the hearing officer. It's 100% state funded, up to $50,000 and $150 per hour.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
The Senate Pro Tem.
Good afternoon, members. This is a contract with Dorman Walker with Balch and Bingham. It's for him to continue to provide both professional and legal services to Reapportionment Committee.
Any questions? Thank you. The last contract is Department of Transportation.
We have one renewal, 2 years for additional money also with Mayor Brown on general legal services.
This is a rather expensive contract. What's their particular expertise?
It's with the design build, West Alabama Highway, Mobile River Bridge.
Any questions? I believe that concludes our agenda. Thank you to our staff for the great work, and appreciate everybody's reports. Any other comments by the committee? Thank you. We stand adjourned.